Some newly leaked data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection reveals more than 170,000 migrants were encountered at the border in March. The data was first obtained by CNN, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. A source telling ABC 15 the numbers do look pretty close to CBP's upcoming reports. So here's how this preliminary data breaks down. 18,800 unaccompanied children, 99,300 single adults, 53,500 families, all encounters within the month of March. So let's break this down. What does this all mean? Investigator Liliana Soto and ABC 15's data analyst Garrett Archer bringing us a perspective through data to determine the reality of what's really happening or has been happening at our border.
Some call it a crisis and blame the current administration.
A man-made crisis caused by elites in Washington, D.C.
Others call it a challenge brought up as a result of the previous administration. There's no doubt the data reveals a concerning issue, but how far back has this been happening?
And I would like to start by asking ABC 15 data analyst Garrett Archer if there's a possibility to break a record here. Garrett?
It does appear that we are going to be at a high that we've not seen in 15 years from 2006. The only number it does appear we will not break a record is for the family units. The family unit encounters is much lower than it was in 2019.
Now, if we look at the number for single adults,
the number of single adults, in fact, is about 3 times higher so far than it typically is.
We're talking about almost 100,000, 58% of all encounters in March. However, it doesn't mean 100,000 single adults crossed the border. And that's because of a policy called Title 42.
Border encounters have been rising since April, when President Trump instituted the Title 42 expulsions at the border.
Aaron Reiklin-Melnick is with the American Immigration Council, an organization that advocates on behalf of immigrants.
Because those expulsions led mostly single adults to be expelled back to Mexico within hours, that let people return to the patterns we haven't seen at the border in nearly 20 years. Many of those are the same person crossing the border multiple times and being turned back quickly.
His research matches with U.S. Customs and Border Protection's data. He says the trend we're seeing now of single adults crossing was bound to happen.
Regardless of who was president in January, we would have seen this trend accelerate. This practice of rapid expulsions of individuals back to Mexico basically replicates what the Border Patrol used to do in the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s with what were known as voluntary returns, where people would cross the border and they'd just be sent right back to Mexico immediately.
So are we seeing the same patterns all over again?
There is an established seasonality to encounters on the southwest border. What we see is that consistently in the past 20 years, the number of encounters goes up from December to March. This plays out in almost all data formats, from the single adults to the unaccompanied minors to the family units. Essentially, every sort of migration pattern does increase from December to March.
Going back to 2 years ago, if you look at 2019, family unit encounters were significantly high.
The CBP operates on a fiscal year of October to September. So if we look at October to March, right now, family unit encounters is half of what it was at 2019. That's how many there were in 2019. 190,000 up to this point, and right now there's only been about 90,000.
But something never seen before is the increasing number of unaccompanied children, almost 19,000 in just 1 month.
That is higher than any other number that has ever been reported by the CBP. So unless something changes in the numbers going forward, 2021 will not only break the record for unaccompanied minors, but will exceed it by a pretty significant amount.
Although data is important, we also need to look at what's underneath those numbers. We'll explore some of those migration causes in the days to come. Liliana Soto, ABC 15, Arizona.